Okay, so now we are going to start with chromoblastomycosis, which is another type of subcutaneous mycosis. Right, so let's see what chromoblastomycosis is. So, chromoblastomycosis is a chronic and a slow growing subcutaneous infection. Right, so again, it's a lazy kind. Right, so it's a slow growing subcutaneous infection which is caused by Demataceous fungi. Right, so Demataceous fungi, we already know these are the ones which are producing black or brown colored hyphae. Right, so these are the ones which are producing black or brown colored hyphae, and these actually are the ones which are causing chromoblastomycosis. So we have Fonseca pedrosi, Fonseca compacta, Phyllophora verrucosa, Cladophorium caroni, and Rhinocladia aqua persa. Right, and I know how bad these names are, and unfortunately we don't even have a mnemonic for them. So but there's one thing, that when you don't have a mnemonic for such kind of names, just sing them along. That works very well. Anyways, so we saw what were the organisms which are causing chromoblastomycosis. Now there are some similarities between mycetoma and chromoblastomycosis. Right, so mycetoma was an exogenous infection, right? So chromoblastomycosis is also an exogenous infection, right? Means these fungi are found in our surroundings. They are not present in our body. They are not commensals. They are saprophytic organisms, right? And the mode of infection is again the traumatic inoculation. So some kind of trauma with the contaminated object, or just it could be just the soil. So by traumatic inoculation we get the infection, and again males are more commonly affected than females, and the lower limb is the most common site involved. Otherwise they can be found in any of the place where they infect us. Anyways, so these are the similarities that we see between mycetoma and chromoblastomycosis, right? So these are similar to mycetoma. Now let's talk about the lesions that we see in case of chromoblastomycosis. So we see verrucous lesions, right? We see verrucous lesions, or they could be polymorphic. So the lesions could be polymorphic. Polymorphic means that they are appearing in different forms, right? Different morphology. So they could be either verrucous, right? They could be nodular, they could be ulcerative, right? Or they could be tumor-like as well, right? But this verrucous one, right, this morphology is the most commonly seen. Like we can see here, this is a case of chromoblastomycosis, and this verrucous lesion can be appreciated. Verrucous means like somewhat like cauliflower type, right? So like this something like you all know what a cauliflower is, right? So they somehow resemble cauliflower. So these are the verrucous lesions that are commonly seen in case of chromoblastomycosis. Now let's talk a little bit about the lab diagnosis, in which we are going to see some very particular thing that you can see right here. Okay, so from the patient that presents with such kind of verrucous lesions, right, we are going to take up the biopsy, and we are going to see on the histopathological examination, right? So on the histopathological examination we are going to see this, right? And what can you observe in here? This copper shaped things, like these penny like things, right? So what are they? We are going to see brown thick walled cells which are about 5 to 12 microns in size, right? So we are going to see these brown thick walled cells on the histopathological examination, and they are having septations, right? They are having septation that you can see clearly in here, right? These are the septations. So this is basically like this, something like this. A lot of this penny like cells you are going to observe in the histopathological examination, right? And they have a specific name, right? And these brown thick walled cells with the septations are known as sclerotic bodies. They are known as sclerotic bodies, and not only just sclerotic bodies, they are also known as, they have many names. They are also known as medullary bodies, right? They're known as medullary bodies, muriform cells, and copper penny cells, right? So they are known as sclerotic bodies, medullary bodies, muriform cells, or copper penny cells, because they sort of resembles the penny, right? Not the one which is in Big Bang Theory. Okay, so that was about the lab diagnosis. Now, how are you going to treat this patient? Okay, so the patient of in case of chromoblastomycosis, we are going to surgically remove the lesion, right? Surgically you remove the lesion, and this is followed by some antifungal such as itraconazole. You give antifungal drugs such as itraconazole, right? So that was about chromoblastomycosis. Now we are going to see something about this pheohyphomycosis. Now, what is pheohyphomycosis? Actually, it is also a chronic infection. It is again a chronic infection, subcutaneous one for that matter. It is again a chronic subcutaneous infection, and it is caused by Demetaceous fungi, right? So how is it different from chromoblastomycosis that we just read about? So the organisms which are causing the chromoblastomycosis are the ones which are not causing pheohyphomycosis. So those are the only Demetaceous fungi which will not be causing pheohyphomycosis, and also they don't have sclerotic bodies when you do the biopsy of the lesions. Okay, so they don't have these copper penny cells. Okay, so that's why they are put it into a different class. So pheohyphomycosis are also a chronic subcutaneous infection, right, which are caused by Demetaceous fungi, but they do not have sclerotic bodies. So which Demetaceous fungi are causing it? Okay, we have Alternaria species and Curvularia species. Okay, so that was about pheohyphomycosis. Now let's get to rhinosporidiosis. Okay, rhinosporidiosis. There we go. Now, rhinosporidiosis is a chronic granulomatous infection, right? It is again a chronic granulomatous infection which is characterized by these large polyp-like lesions, right? So as you can appreciate here that this guy have this, polyp-like thing stuck in his nose. It is actually not stuck in his nose. It is growing in there, right? So they are making these rhinosporidiosis, the causative organism, is making this polyp here, right? So this is the most common site actually, right? So these lesions, these polyp-like lesions, are most commonly seen in nose, right? So nasal polyps are the most common ones, but they can also be present in genitalia, your conjunctiva, ear, or larynx, right? So they can also be present in here. Now, which is the who is the organism causing this trouble, right? So it is Rhinosporidium seaberi, right? And it is, guys, not a fungus anymore, but we still studied here. Okay, so it is caused by Rhinosporidium seaberi, right? Which is not classified as a fungus anymore. It is now considered as a aquatic protistian. Okay, it is an aquatic protist organism, and if it is an aquatic protist, where it is going to be found? Obviously in a water body. So they are present in stagnant water, right? So these Rhinosporidium seaberi, which is not a fungus anymore, they are considered as an aquatic protist. They are present in stagnant water. So the source of infection is normally when you go swimming in the skinny dipping in some contaminated river or lake, right? So you can get this infection. So that is why I've put a photo of this cute dog who is swimming in a swimming pool. So swim in a swimming pool, guys. Right? So you don't get the infection. Anyways, Rhinosporidium has this special thing. It is not cultivable. Okay, it is one of the organism which is not cultivable. We cannot cultivate in our labs. Okay, it is a non-cultivable organism. And now let's talk about the lab diagnosis. How are you going to diagnose this person based on what you see in the microscope, right? So for the lab diagnosis, we are going to see the histopathology of the polyp, right? Whether it is from the nose or ear or larynx, wherever it is present. So we are going to see the histopathology of the polyp, and what we are going to see in it, we are going to see a spherule or a sporangium, right? A spherule or a sporangium, which is about 350 micron in size, and it is containing a lot of endospores, right? A lot of endospores, which is about 6 to 9 microns in size, right? So you can see it in here. This whole thing is a sporangium or a spherule containing these small endospores. Like a lot of endospores are here. So this is a sporangium or a spherule, which is about 350 microns in size, containing a lot of endospores, right? And by the way, this polyp, okay, these polyps are better stained with the Musi carmine stain. Okay, we talked about this Mayer's Musi carmine stain. So we use for rhinosporidium these Mayer's Musi carmine stain, right? And how are you going to treat this patient? So we obviously do a radical surgery, right? So for the treatment, we do radical surgery with cauterization, right? So we try to remove the lesion, and some drugs that we can use are, one of the drugs is Dapsone. But the poor thing about this rhinosporidiosis is that the recurrence in the patients are very often. So recurrences are present, so we cannot do much about it. So recurrences is present, काफी बार बार आता रहता है. So guys, that was about the subcutaneous mycosis, and next we are going to start with systemic mycosis.